It was the ultimatum heard round the world, a high-stakes gamble where a teenager had to choose between $1 million future and his own integrity. When Jonathan Antoine stepped onto the Britain's Got Talent stage in 2012, the air was thick with skepticism. He looked like a fish out of water, but the moment he opened his mouth, the atmosphere shifted from mockery to pure awe. However, the real drama started the second the music stopped. Simon Cowell, the kingmaker of modern pop, delivered a cold, calculated piece of advice. Dump your partner, Charlotte Jacanelli, or risk your career. This wasn't just a critique. It was a test of character broadcast to millions. The industry expected a hungry young artist to fold, to take the solo path to glory, but Jonathan's immediate and firm no sent shockwaves through the production. It was a moment of defiance that cemented his image as a loyal underdog, but it also painted a target on his back. Reporters at the time wondered if he had just committed professional suicide before his career even began. We're looking at a kid who wasn't just fighting for a record deal. He was fighting against a machine that wanted to commodify his talent while stripping away his humanity. That single decision set the stage for a decade of friction between Jonathan's vision and the industry's expectations. But as we would soon find out, the pressure of the spotlight was nothing compared to the internal wars Jonathan was already fighting behind closed doors. The public saw a hero, but the reality was much darker, involving a mental health struggle so severe it nearly ended the story before the first chapter was even written. While the cameras captured the standing ovations, they missed the moments where Jonathan could barely breathe from the weight of his own mind. Long before he became a household name, Jonathan was dealing with an internal crisis that modern medicine and therapy were struggling to contain. At just 13 years old, he suffered a complete nervous breakdown, a collapse so total that he had to be withdrawn from formal education. This wasn't just a case of stage fright or being a shy kid. It was a debilitating battle with severe depression and social anxiety that made the outside world feel like a hostile environment. Journalists covering his rise often missed the fact that his operatic training wasn't just a hobby. It was his only lifeline, a way to communicate when regular conversation felt impossible. Even during his peak fame on television, there were days when the thought of facing a crowd brought on physical illness. He has since spoken about those heavy days where the darkness felt permanent, and how the sudden transition from a reclusive teenager to a global sensation almost pushed him over the edge. The irony of a man with a voice that could fill stadiums feeling like he had no voice at all is a narrative the media often ignored in favor of the superstar storyline. But this mental fortitude, the ability to perform while your own mind is telling you to hide, became the bedrock of his career. It's the part of the story that makes his later successes feel less like luck and more like a hard-fought victory against his own biology. Yet, even as he found his footing mentally, a new storm was brewing in his professional life that would force a final, painful goodbye. The announcement came like a bolt from the blue, ending a partnership that many believed was the most wholesome thing in music, but the truth behind the split was far from simple. In 2014, Jonathan and Charlotte officially parted ways and the rumor mill went into overdrive. Was there a secret feud? Did the Simon Cowell ultimatum finally poison the well? From a reporter's lens, the split looked like a calculated move by the label to finally get what they wanted, Jonathan as a solo act. The official narrative was musical differences, the oldest cliché in the book, but industry insiders whispered about the intense pressure placed on the duo to maintain an image that didn't fit their growing artistic identities. The fallout was brutal. Fans took sides, and the media began to question if Jonathan had the it factor to sustain a career without the contrast of Charlotte's pop-influenced vocals. It felt like a public divorce, and Jonathan was the one left to prove he wasn't just a talent show gimmick. This period was marked by a chilling silence from the mainstream press, leading many to speculate that his star had faded. But what the public didn't see was Jonathan retreating to the studio, reinventing himself not as a duo member, but as a serious student of the classical arts. He was fighting the novelty act stigma, a battle that many reality TV alumni lose. He knew that the next move had to be perfect, or he would become another "Where Are They Now" headline. And just when people thought they had him figured out, he reappeared with a physical and vocal transformation that made the world do a double take. When Jonathan stepped back into the frame for his later projects, the boy the world remembered was gone, replaced by a man whose physical change was so radical it sparked concerns about his well-being. This wasn't just a haircut or a new wardrobe. Jonathan had undergone a massive health overhaul, losing a significant amount of weight that completely altered his silhouette. In the world of opera, where a larger-than-life frame is often unfairly associated with vocal power, this was a risky move. Rumors began to circulate. Was he ill? Was the pressure of the industry finally forcing him to conform to a pop star image? The reality was more personal. Jonathan described it as a quest for longevity, a way to physically match the mental strength he had worked so hard to build. He wasn't just shedding pounds. He was shedding the skin of the bullied, insecure kid the world first met. For a reporter covering this beat, the change was a goldmine of speculation. But Jonathan handled it with a level of transparency that was rare for celebrities. He spoke about the discipline required, the shift in his relationship with food, and how his physical lightness finally allowed his voice to soar in ways it couldn't before. It was a visual representation of his independence. He was no longer the cuddly contestant the producers could mold. He was an athlete of the voice. This transformation served as a bridge to his next big move, a move that would involve burning bridges with the very people who gave him his start. In an industry where major labels hold all the keys to the kingdom, Jonathan Antoine did the unthinkable. He walked away from the safety of a massive recording contract to bet entirely on himself. This is the controversial chapter the industry doesn't want you to focus on. After the initial success of his early albums, Jonathan realized that the big machine was more interested in safe, easy-to-sell covers than his artistic growth. He wanted to explore deeper, more complex operatic territory, while the labels wanted another pop opera crossover. The tension reached a breaking point, and Jonathan made the move to go independent. To many industry veterans, this was career suicide. Without a multi-million-dollar marketing budget, how does a tenor survive? But Jonathan utilized the digital age, connecting directly with a global fan community that stayed loyal through the transition. He funded his own projects, took creative control over his arrangements, and bypassed the traditional gatekeepers who told him what he should sound like. From a journalistic perspective, this was a landmark moment of artist versus industry. It exposed the flaws in the talent show model, which often traps artists in restrictive contracts that stifle their long-term potential. His project Tenor wasn't just an album, it was a manifesto. He proved that a dedicated fan base is more powerful than a corporate boardroom. However, taking the indie route meant he was largely blacklisted from mainstream UK radio and television, forcing him to look across the Atlantic for a new beginning. Just as the British media began to treat him as a nostalgic memory, Jonathan Antoine pulled off a reverse British invasion that left his critics silenced. While the UK tabloids were busy looking for the next reality TV scandal, Jonathan was quietly selling out venues in the United States and filming a PBS special that would introduce him to an entirely new demographic. The American audience didn't care about his 2012 reality TV history. They cared about the voice of a generation. This move was a masterclass in rebranding. He moved away from the contestant label and leaned into being a world-class tenor, performing at the legendary Muhammad Ali Celebrity Fight Night and collaborating with musical icons. This period wasn't without its challenges. Traveling as an independent artist is a logistical nightmare, and the accusation that he had turned his back on his home country began to surface in small circles. But Jonathan's success in the States provided the financial and creative freedom he could never find under the thumb of UK labels. He became a fixture of the American classical crossover scene, proving that his talent wasn't tied to a specific brand or a specific judge's chair. He had effectively divorced himself from the system that created him, and in doing so, he found a level of fame that was sustainable because it was built on respect rather than hype. As we look at the trajectory of Jonathan Antoine today, we aren't looking at a talent show winner, but a survivor of a system designed to exploit and discard. His career is a blueprint for any artist trying to navigate the treacherous waters of modern fame. He survived a mental health crisis that would have broken most. He survived the split of a beloved duo, and he survived the transition from a major label puppet to an independent powerhouse. Jonathan has managed to keep his integrity intact in an industry that views loyalty as a liability. His story challenges the very idea of what a successful career looks like. Is it having the most #1 hits, or is it having the freedom to sing exactly what you want, when you want? As he continues to evolve, both physically and artistically, he leaves us with a thought-provoking question. In an era where everyone is looking for a shortcut to fame, is the long road, filled with defiance, health struggles, and independent risks, actually the only road worth taking? Jonathan Antoine didn't just find his voice, he fought to keep it, and that might be his most remarkable achievement of all.